And here we are yet again on the thiccmaninc podcast for week 8 of the NFL season. And I'll be honest with you fans at home, the majority of this year has been a big disappointment from an outsider's perspective. The teams are not playing well, they're just not gelling, the free agency acquisitions have failed to amount to anything, and all in all, it's a sad state of affairs. But week 8 is where it all turns around. But before we get into the actual games, I'm going to offer you a different prediction for a different sport. We are going to give you, and by we I mean me, a World Series prediction. And I'm here to tell you the Philadelphia Phillies will beat the Houston Astros because they are America's team. They have the best hitter in baseball. They've got the best pitching in baseball. And they are not going to lose to an organization of cheaters and frauds. They are going to dominate the Astros in 5 games, a gentleman's sweep, and Philly will hoist the World Series tour for the first time in a long time. Do you have a response to that, Tristan?
I don't really care. As a Yankees fan, it hurts to see them lose. So it would be nice to see the Astros lose as well, considering Altuve also robbed Judge of his MVP award a couple years ago.
The world roots for Philadelphia. On to the actual sporting events now. And as always, before we record this, or before we publish this, the Thursday night game will have been played, but is recorded prior to that, so we're still going to give you a prediction. So, away we go. And I am very confident that we will both pick this game correctly, because we are both going to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will gain a dynamic victory. Now, while I may believe Tom Brady is washed and rapidly approaching retirement, what I do not believe is he will lose 3 weeks in a row. Maybe it's because the Buccaneers have a truly elite defense. Maybe it's because their receiving core is stacked. Maybe it's because Leonard Fournette is a beast. Maybe it's because Tom Brady hasn't lost 3 games in almost 2 decades, or maybe it's because of the fact that Tom Brady has not lost to an African-American quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes since he arrived in Tampa Bay. This streak will continue thanks to the strength of the Buccaneers defense, and Lamar Jackson will put up good numbers, but will not be able to do enough to triumph over old man Brady and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers ship will be righted after this week.
This season, you have had some of the coldest takes. The Ravens, they're still one of the best teams in the NFL, and we cannot say the same thing about the Buccaneers. The Ravens are very close to being above 500 and being better than their 500 record. They've had a couple games this season where they made a couple small mistakes, and that's where things went wrong. In every game they've played, even though they're only 3-3, they've led by 10 or more points. It has been their defense that has been letting them down, and their offense is electric. When the Ravens' offense is on point, there is no defense in the NFL, no matter how good they are, that can slow them down or will be able to win the game for them. The Ravens' problem is that they're just not consistent. And heading into this game, given the fact that the Buccaneers' offense has been bad, the Ravens have had very close losses. They lost 42-38 to the Dolphins, a 23-20 loss to the Bills, who are the best team in the NFL. The Ravens have quality losses on their resume where they probably could have and should have won the game. So I think the Ravens are going to win this one. Tom Brady is going to put up another poor performance, and the Buccaneers offense, it hasn't been great all season. I don't see that starting now.
Well, the Raveneers' so-called electric offense hasn't showed up in a month. They've scored 23 points, 20 points, 19 points, and 24 points in their last few games. And sure, they're playing alright defense. The Bills have a good defense. The Browns have an alright defense. The Giants have a good defense. But they only scored 19 against the Bengals. Like, this offense, which is supposed to be good, doesn't put up big points. They have to play a real defense. And you can say what you want about Brady in the offense, but the Buccaneers defense is real. He's just not going to be able to get it done against Tampa Bay this week. I hate to break it to you.
Tampa Bay's defense may be real, but their offense is a joke at this point. It doesn't matter if they have Tom Brady leading the way. They haven't been really able to get anything going on the ground, and through the air, they haven't been able to put up points. So they just lost to the Panthers. The Panthers are the worst roster in the NFL with an XFL quarterback leading the way. Don't
you disrespect PJ Walker like he's some bum off the street. Like the XFL MVP isn't one of the best football players on the planet. I'm not going to sit here and let you do
I don't see them winning tonight. I just don't see it happening.
No, you're off your gourd. The Buccaneers are going to win this one. Anyway, on to London. And there is no shot that the Jaguars lose this game against the Broncos. They are practically the home team with how often they have to go across the pond to play. And Lawrence has shown a lot of problems in Doug Peterson's offense. Travis Etienne now has full control of the backfield. I expect a large game out of him. And then there's the fact Russell Wilson is universally hated by his teammates. Imagine for a second you're trying to sleep on like a 5-hour flight, middle of the night, and suddenly you hear, Broncos country, let's ride. And you wake up, you turn to your left, and you see Russell Wilson doing high knees and ankle stretches in the middle of the aisle while you, a professional athlete who has worked your entire life to be here, is trying to sleep in preparation for a game. They've got to hate this man. His offensive line's not going to block for him. His receivers aren't going to get open for him. The defense is going to finally crack. They're going to give up. They're sick of scoring or stopping the opposing offense from scoring more than 20 points, only to lose games, and this is where the dam breaks. I expect the Jaguars to produce a commanding victory over the Broncos. And Russell Wilson Wilson will go down as one of the worst trades in the history of sports. As a matter of fact, I think he may be more hated in this Broncos locker room than Urban Meyer was by this point in his first season with the Jaguars. Russ is a goofball who will deliver the Broncos a dynamic 16 points on the way to yet another loss. Broncos country, let's ride.
Well, this game is just a football game between two really bad teams. I feel bad for the London fans and the European fans that will be traveling to go watch this game, that they have to watch the Broncos take on the Jaguars. It is not going to be an exciting game. I am surprised it is not the Thursday night game this week. We're starting to get used to bad games played on Thursdays. They should have flexed this to prime time on Thursday night with how bad it's going to be. On one side of the ball, there's Russell Wilson, who has been pathetic this season. They have a bad quarterback and a coach that if he loses this game is probably out of a job. And on the other side, there's a team that simply can't find a way to win football games. They've lost 4 games in a row. They've lost to the Colts. They've lost to the Texans. They're losing to bad teams and can't win games right now. So in my mind, this game is going to be extremely boring, but what I think it is setting up to happen is the Broncos are going to come away with the win. It's going to be like a 13-6 game that has nothing to write home about, and we're going to have to hear Mr. Unlimited say let's ride in his press conferences as he tries to start to turn the narrative around that he has not fallen off the cliff and is not washed.
To say Russell Wilson has fallen off a cliff would imply that you had not watched much Seahawks football. He's always been a bum, y'all are just finding it out now. Now back to America, on our side of the pond, we see an organization of bumps take on another organization of bumps. And while I do like PJ Walker and sung many of his praises, particularly after his dynamic victory over the Buccaneers, I just don't think he's going to have it in him to beat the Falcons. When Atlanta's run game does well, their offense scores points and generally wins games. The Panthers' run defense is not that special. I think that Atlanta gets the ball, runs over Carolina in Atlanta. Old Marcus Mariota, big contribution on the ground. Tyler Algier, however you want to say that name, Lord knows I can't, gets the ball, sets the tempo, and the Falcons prevail over the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons this season are the biggest surprise. Myself and many others expected them to be the worst team in the NFL. That has not happened, and the Panthers are looking like the worst team in the NFL. And the easy take after the Panthers winning last week would be to maybe predict them to win, but that game was coming up high off the emotions of trading away Christian McCaffrey and everyone expecting them to lose, and then the Panthers go out and win that game in surprising fashion against the Buccaneers, who are floundering. But they're coming into a game against a team that is hot, is in my opinion, probably the best team in the NFC South right now.
Best team in the South.
And is looking like a playoff team with the way Marcus Mariota is playing. I think the Falcons are going to win this game. The Panthers are not a good football team by every facet, and that performance last week was a one-time thing.
I mean, objectively, the Panthers are one of the 32 best football teams on the planet, so I'd say they're probably a pretty good football team. But the only way the Atlanta Falcons make the playoffs is they somehow go 8-9, and the Buccaneers just fall off a cliff entirely and don't have a winning record, and they somehow win the South. The Falcons team ain't that good. They're at best mediocre, and you can backpedal along and say, oh, me and many others said they were going to be awful, but at the end of the day, they're alright, and alright will be enough to beat the Panthers. I think we're in agreement on that.
I mean, the Buccaneers just lost to the Panthers last week, and you think they're still going to win the NFC South.
I do. Divorce is an amazing thing. Speaking of divorces, the Bears are very close to divorcing themselves from Justin Fields. And it doesn't take a clairvoyant to tell you how this game is going to go. And while I like nothing better than to laugh at the follies of the Dallas organization, those follies will not be put on display this week. The Bears are shipping off all their high-end talent to real contenders and are going to try and rebuild around the scraps in 2023. I think if they've got the top pick, they'll select Bryce Young and move on from Fields. Hopefully, for Fields' sake, he's able to get a few wins, stop himself from getting replaced, but this week is not going to be one of those wins. Micah Parsons might have 17 sacks against Justin Fields. It's going to be a rough outing for the Bears.
Well, I think we saw the Bears offense go through an evolution last week by beating a very good Patriots defense and kind of taking, you don't expect that performance from a young quarterback against Bill Belichick. So that was very good. But they are playing a Cowboys pass rush and a front seven that is just built different. The Cowboys are leading the NFL in sacks. They're on pace for 70 sacks this season, 2 fewer than the 1984 Bears had when they set the NFL sack record for most team sacks in a single season. This Cowboys front seven is special. The Bears offensive line is still bad. The receiving core still lacks depth and lacks talent, and their run game has been very good, but when you take a look at the Cowboys front seven, they're going to take over the game, and the Cowboys offense is not all that special. I think Cowboys fans, they hype it up way too much. They haven't done anything at an elite level this year, but their defense is so good, and their front seven is so good that it is more than enough to beat a poor Bears offensive line and mediocre quarterback play, as Justin Fields quite hasn't taken that next step yet.
You and I are in agreement on this one. I don't think this game's going to be particularly entertaining, in large part due to how bad the Cowboys offense is. I'd rather chew on used cigarette filters and watch this one. But yeah, the Cowboys don't really need to do much offensively to beat this Bears team. You can say the win over the Patriots was impressive all you want. Fields did not manage to get 180 passing yards. He fumbled the ball 4 times and a bad interception. It's just, if that's the evolution of play, I don't think we're evolving in the right direction.
Statistically, I'm just talking about the play calling and how they commanded the game. I think it's way better than anything we've seen out of the Bears offense over the last 3 seasons, even with Mitch.
Could also be due to the fact old Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi were behind the helm for the New England Patriots, but hey. On to a game which should be a little bit more entertaining. Now, while the Lions are a much better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Miami Dolphins, and the Steelers almost did it. Tua Tagovailoa did not quite capture the magic he had in the first few games in the Week 7 matchup between himself and Pittsburgh. But now that his noodle is a little bit more restabilized, his brain's firing on all cylinders again, I think that they are going to be able to cruise to a victory. The only thing about this which gives me pause, though, is the Lions got back DeAndre Swift, who in my opinion is one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL. Low into that certainly, but still a very talented rusher. Dolphins don't have an amazing run defense, but at the same time they don't need one when you can just throw the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and let them go get you 200 yards apiece. The Dolphins are going to win this game in Detroit, but the Lions offense will start to recapture a little bit of that fire they had lost in previous games.
Well, they also have Amon-Ra St. Brown back, who, was struggling with injury and also got pulled out of the game last week due to concussion protocol and is expected to play this week. But at this point, the magic of the Lions offense through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season has worn off. Jared Goff has come back down to earth, and it is official. Dan Campbell may not be that good of a head football coach, and he's really just a fun head football coach. The Lions are not that great of a team, and over the last 2 weeks, they've been outscored 53-6. That is really bad. That is not good, and I don't see them winning this football game. Tua hasn't been as good as he was at the beginning of the season, but when you have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Mike Gesicki, and you're playing the worst defense in the NFL, that is an easy win. I don't really see a way for the Lions to win this game.
I mean, you say he hasn't been playing as good. He had one bad game after having a horrible concussion. You can't really dismiss him like that. I feel that's a bit insulting to young Mr. Tagovailoa.
I didn't say he's going to be bad. I said you could say he's taking a step back, but when you have all this other talent, it doesn't matter regardless.
I don't think a step is made in either direction, but hey.
Whatever you want to say.
On to a game which is going to fill me with great suffering and internal emotional damage. Now, coming off a bye week, you would expect a Minnesota Vikings team who is 5-1 to smoke the Cardinals, who have lacked an offensive identity all year. As someone who's watched every single minute of the Vikings this year, I am not so optimistic. Minnesota has struggled to pull away from bad teams for a majority of their games, in large part due to the ineptitude of Kirk Cousins and the fact that he is simply not that guy. Now that Arizona has DeAndre Hopkins back, they have regained their offensive identity, and they look like they might win the NFC West. This starts by beating the Minnesota Vikings. I expect the Cardinals to boat race the Vikings in the first half, only for Kirk to fail to mount a little comeback, which makes the final score look a little bit closer than the game really was. The Cardinals are going to get a decisive victory and turn their season around right here.
I don't really see that happening. I mean, the Vikings have been probably the most competent team in the NFC outside of the 3 competent teams in the NFC East. They're 5-1, and their one loss came to the Eagles, who are one of the 3 best teams in the NFL. The Vikings are a very solid football team. They're not special on either side of the ball, but they're solid on both sides of the ball. So coming into this game, I think they're going to win the game because the Cardinals are a team that really hasn't put everything together, and I don't think DeAndre Hopkins means that much and is going to make their offense a cohesive unit that all of a sudden becomes elite. Because we take a look at Marquise Brown, he was very productive in the Cardinals offense, playing the role that DeAndre Hopkins usually plays, and it's not like that changed the Cardinals offense. Now DeAndre Hopkins is obviously a better receiver, but someone was playing that role to an adequate level, and I don't see DeAndre Hopkins coming back, making the Cardinals offense special or fixing their defensive problems. So I think the Vikings are going to wind up winning.
You realize the Cardinals did in fact score 42 points last week. You're aware of this, correct?
I am aware of this.
And if you go back and gaze upon their schedule, they had not managed to break 30 the entire previous 6 games. So, yeah, I kind of think they got their offensive identity back. I think Hopkins helps. And sure, the Saints defense ain't special. They shouldn't be giving up 42 points to a team which doesn't have an offensive identity. The Cardinals offense just got for real. I'm not happy my team's playing. I think this is where the Vikings really start to show what type of team they are. And unfortunately, that's not a team which is good enough to beat a high-powered offense, which Arizona is going to
They beat a 2-win Saints team who doesn't...
Yes, they scored 42 points against a 2-win Saints team. If you want to make fun of the defense, you can make fun of the defense. This Cardinals offense is going to be for real, and it's going to score a lot of points.
They also gave up 34 points that game, too, so...
That's
and
crazy.
They're playing a much more competent Vikings team.
Much more competent is a stretch. The Vikings almost lost to the Saints when the Saints were wheeling out old Andy Dalton at quarterback, so let's pump the brakes there.
They're still wheeling out Andy Dalton.
If the Saints can't outscore the Arizona Cardinals, so how can we expect them to outscore the Las Vegas Raiders? Vegas scored 38 points in the absence of Darren Waller. Now that Waller is back, they might drop 50 on New Orleans. I think this game is going to be a rout. A smooth transition, by the way, from the Cardinals Saints to the Saints Raiders. I just want to point that out. Anyway, the Raiders have regained some momentum they did not have previously in the year. Beating the Texans is not a huge achievement, but the way they did it was impressive to me. I think they are going to be able to move forward into the Saints game and do something similar. Saints aren't a very good team. Their defense is fairly weak with the exception of their high-end talent, their 2-star players. Outside them, no one special. They traded away their second-best cornerback to the Eagles, and now they're reaping the reward. I expect Waller, Adams, and Renfrow to all have big games, and the Raiders to easily triumph over New Orleans.
Yeah, the Raiders are the best 2-4 team in NFL history, if that is even a thing. Their margin of loss over their 4 losses is 3.25 points. They're not losing by wide margins, and they've lost to good teams. Their offense has the capability of being elite, and I think they are more than capable of being a good football team and more than capable of finishing a season out with an above 500 record. It is not easy to overcome the loss of Darren Waller and to overcome the loss of Hunter Renfrow, who has missed a bunch of games this season. Those are two key components to your offense. And when you take a look at what Josh Jacobs has done in their absence, he's been absolutely electric. So when you add Darren Waller back and you add Hunter Renfrow's production back, they can be a special team. And they're playing a Saints team that has so many injuries on the offensive side of the ball. Jameis Winston is still playing. Michael Thomas has been struggling with that injury. Jarvis Landry hasn't really been playing. So the Saints don't really have a ton going for them on offense because of the injuries. And the Raiders are kind of getting back in that groove, like Isaiah said. So I expect the Raiders to win this game.
You gotta hope that we're not both wrong on this one. This would be just a smidge embarrassing, but hey.
It feels like one that probably doesn't go our way.
It kind of does. Like, the second you and I start agreeing on something being the Raiders' offense is a sign they're about to score 7 points. But on to an offense we all thought was going to average about 7 points a game, but now looks like a real playoff contender. The Jets have dismantled what should have been a tank season and are selling the scrap metal for more wins. Most recently, they went out and added James Robinson to replace Breece Hall and keep the Jets' backfield alive. Now they stand to exact revenge upon the organization which has tormented them for 2 decades. Zach Wilson is that guy. The Jets' running game is legit. Mac Jones is a clubhouse cancer, and Jersey will get past the Patriots this weekend. This game is going to be amazing to watch. I expect it to be a good old-fashioned slobber knocker beatdown. It's the type of football I live to watch. Bad emotions, a lot of hurt feelings on the opposite sideline. Just tremendous for the sport of football. So this is what football's all about.
So Zach Wilson is that guy after throwing for 110 yards and then 120 yards. Zach Wilson is far from that guy. And this game is going to be super interesting, and I will buy in on the Jets if they're able to overcome the Breece Hall injury. Breece Hall had become the engine for that offense. It was not Zach Wilson. He was fueling the Jets offense to points, fueling the Jets offense to wins, fueling the Jets offense to yards. He was the reason they're any good. And it is going to be interesting if by trading for James Robinson in combination with Michael Carter, if they're able to supplement what Breece Hall was doing. If they're able to do that, I think the Jets are a very solid football team. Their defense has been very solid. But I do think the Patriots are going to win this one because it is hard when you lose the best and most productive player in your offense to go out the very next week and then win a football game. So especially with poor quarterback play.
So it's going to be even more impressive when the Jets move to 6-2 after beating the Patriots after this so-called devastating loss. Look, if the Jets hadn't done anything to replace Breece Hall, I get it. But when you go out there and you make a move for a 1,000-yard rusher in James Robinson, you both show your fans and your clubhouse that you are fully bought into this season. It would have been easy for the Jets to roll over and die at about 17 different points this year. When Zach Wilson was down, they could have said, oh, we give up. When Mekhi Becton went down for the year, oh, we give up, we're not going to win. Now Breece Hall's down. That's not going to change anything. thing. This Jets team is going to keep working its way to wins. And I do not expect New England to have an answer to anything they do offensively, let alone the run game.
I won't be surprised if that happens over the course of the season. I think they're definitely going to wind up with at least 2 more wins this year, and then probably get to the 8 or 9 win mark. But when you lose that big of a piece in your offense, it is hard to go out the very next week to win a football game. So that's why I think the Patriots are going to win
New Jersey
this
team.
What?
You were hating on the better team which plays at MetLife.
Okay.
And I get it. I understand.
Whatever you want, whatever makes you sleep at night.
Nothing will tell you sleep. I have insomnia. But on to the city of brotherly love. The Eagles are gearing up to defend their bid for the best team in their state and remain undefeated. The only thing that can stop them, the single-season sack leader, has returned to practice in Pittsburgh. If TJ Watt somehow manages to miraculously return for this game, I expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to hand Philadelphia their first loss. With Watt back on the Steelers, Philly will not have faced anything close to this level of a pass rush. Hurts will be hounded all game. It will not be fair. It's going to look like what they did to the Bengals in week 1. If Watt doesn't come back, I expect the Steelers won't be able to generate any sort of pressure like they have failed to do since their week 1 victory over the Bengals. If so, the Eagles will cruise to an easy victory behind Jalen Hurts and go 7-0 for the first time in a very long time. But if Watt comes back, the Steelers have this one.
Well, just to speak to your point, the Steelers' offense has been pathetic without TJ Watt. They've given up 394 yards a game this year, which is not good. It's one of the worst defenses in the NFL as far as yards given up. And heading into this game, even if TJ Watt comes back, I think that is going to continue because of how good and how competent, I keep using that word, the Eagles are in all facets of the game. They have very good cornerbacks. They have a very good secondary. They have a very solid front seven. They just added Robert Quinn from the Bears, who is very solid. He's not the best pass rusher in the NFL this year, but he's a very good pass rusher. And the Eagles are just good everywhere. And on the Steelers, their offense has been very boring no matter who's at quarterback. And both quarterbacks have been struggling. So maybe Kenny Pickett goes out there, throws 3 interceptions, gets benched for Mitch. Or maybe he plays well, but he's not going to play elite. The Steelers offense is not special. And you're playing a team that's very good on defense and very good on offense. The Eagles are going to win this game relatively easily.
You know, it might be time for old Mason Rudolph to rear his ugly head again and deliver the Steelers a win. It kind of does feel like a Mason Rudolph day, I'll be honest with you. Just to absolutely dismantle the hopes and dreams of a black quarterback, that is something Mason Rudolph would love to do. So maybe he comes in there. But off to a team which is having their hopes and dreams gradually dismantled. The Houston Texans are 1-4-1 this year. They're not a good football team. Their high point was tying the Indianapolis Colts, and since then it's kind of all been downhill. On the other hand, we've got the Tennessee Titans team, who looked dead in the water points, but thanks to Derrick Henry and their, let's say, unique style of offensive play, the Titans have clawed their way to 4-2. Now they're off to the Texans. And I expect this game to be closer than some would expect. That's just the nature of Titans football. They tend to not blow out teams, but they will get a win over Houston. The Texans' run defense isn't quite all that. Their offense is lacking. Their secondary, it looks good. The young players in there are performing well, but still not good enough to stop what's coming. Derrick Henry's going to do Derrick Henry things, and the Titans will secure their 5th win of the season.
I'm incredibly frustrated. I want the Texans to win this game because I'm starting to hate Titans fans. Because I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about the fact the Titans are not a good football team, and now Titans fans are throwing in my face that the Titans have 4 wins and are ignoring all of their team's flaws. The Titans are not good at anything. Their passing attack is one of the worst in the NFL, fourth least passing yards per game. Their rushing offense, despite the fact they have Derrick Henry, is in the bottom half of the league when it comes to rushing yards. And their defense is not all that great either. Their rushing yards given up per game is bottom half of the NFL. Pass yards given up per game, bottom half of the NFL. Points given up per game, bottom half of the NFL. They're not elite or good anywhere. They've just been playing bad teams. They've beat the Colts twice and Commanders once. That's all you need to know when it comes to their resume. But luckily for them, they're now playing the Texans. So they're probably going to beat the Texans because the Texans are a bad football team. Their roster is worse in almost every spot than Titans, except maybe Davis Mills is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. Both teams aren't good. The Titans are not good. And I'm just frustrated by the fan base thinking they're good. At best, they're mediocre, but they're going to get away with another win. And now I'm going to have to see the 5 wins in the comment section.
Look, I feel like it's very narrow-minded to say, oh, they don't have that many counting stats. You realize the way the Titans play lends itself to running fewer offensive plays, right? Like, that clock generally does not stop moving if Derrick Henry's getting 20, 30 carries a game. So there's a reason behind the rushing yards and passing. The passing yards are because Ryan Tannehill stinks, but the rushing yards being low compared to other teams in the NFL, there's a reason for that. They've still got a good running. I feel it's dismissive of how good Derrick Henry and that offensive line is to say they don't have one. But we agree, the Titans are going to be 5-2 after this week, so no need to split hairs over how it happens.
Titans suck.
Now on to Indianapolis. And while this might seem to be an easy win for the Colts, those who think that are sadly mistaken. Taylor Heineke, carrying the will of Carson Wentz, is going to march into Indianapolis and humiliate the Colts, pull their pants down, spank them on national television, embarrass Irsay, embarrass McAfee, and show them what a real quarterback looks like. Nobody knows who's starting for the Colts. Some no-name dude is taking over from Matt Ryan, who is benched and looks like he's done for the year because he's a washed-up old has-been who won MVP half a decade ago and hasn't done much since. And now we are all going to see what happens when you replace a real quarterback, a quarterback who can win you games, a risk-taker and a gambler in Carson Wentz with that old phony. The Commanders are going to dominate this game. Carson Wentz is going to have a big smile on the sideline, and NFL fans around the world will laugh at Indianapolis.
I mean, the Colts are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they are hot off beating the Packers, so the easy prediction would be to say the Commanders are going to go in and beat the Colts like Isaiah was saying. That is the easy take, especially with Taylor Heineke stepping in and revitalizing the offense, giving that offense some juice. But I actually think the Colts are going to win this game because Jonathan Taylor came back last week. He had an okay game, added 85 yards on the ground, had some yards through the air, but the Colts now have Sam Ehlinger stepping in, and he is going to do the same thing for the Colts offense what Taylor Heineke did last week. He's going to give the offense juice. Him and Jonathan Taylor are going to dominate the Commanders defense, and the Colts are going to walk away with the victory. I think Taylor is going to have his first breakout game this year, and the Colts are going to add another win to their season.
You're telling me you wouldn't love to see Carson Wentz laughing his head off in a hoodie as Indianapolis goes down 30 points. You're telling me that's not what you want to happen? You're not going to let your heart pick this game. You're going to let your mind pick this game. Whatever, man. On to the West Coast, where the Los Angeles Rams of LA are taking on the San Francisco 49ers of San Francisco. And while this game will not be entertaining, it will be very impactful because the winner of this game will likely finish first or second in the NFC West and probably will get a playoff spot. My money is on the Rams. Now we can say everything we want about, Matthew Stafford's horrible, they've got no offensive identity, yada yada yada, they should have signed Odell. At the end of the day, this team is still the Super Bowl champion. They still have one of the best coaches in the league. They still have one of the best defensive players in the league. And Matthew Stafford, while his arm simply is not there anymore, still knows his X's is from his O's. He'll be able to deliver the Rams a victory in a low-scoring affair against the 49ers, because it does not take much offensively to beat the 49ers. I don't care that Christian McCaffrey's been added and he's got a week to acclimate to the offense. I don't think he's going to be that special in San Francisco. I picked him in one of my fantasy leagues. I'm not happy about it. I think his fantasy value dipped. I think his production's going to dip. I think he's not going to be able to transform a lackluster 49ers offense. I see the Rams winning this game and going to 4-3.
You seem to forget that the Rams offense is also pretty pathetic, and the 49ers are a horrible matchup for them. If you saw my TikTok that I posted this week, you already know how I feel about the Rams. I don't really think they stand a chance against the 49ers because of how good the 49ers front seven is. They are second in the NFL in sacks, and the Rams offensive line has been bad. 23rd in the NFL in team pass block win rate. Matt Stafford is the 5th most sacked quarterback in the NFL. They only throw the ball to Cooper Kupp. They don't really get the ball to anyone else on their offense. Darrell Henderson is very solid, but he's running behind an offensive line that has a 28th worst run block win rate in the NFL. The Rams are not a good offense. They're putting up 17 points a game, and when you have to play a 49ers defense that is elite, they're very good, and the front seven is dominant when in your offensive line can't generate a push in pass pro or run blocking, it's not a recipe for success, and the 49ers are going to win this game. Much like the Cowboys, their offense is not going to have to do a lot to win this football game.
So I see a lot of check down, slant, short passes which really don't put Matthew Stafford in danger this game. But you're right, Sean McVay's no idiot. He knows the 49ers get after the quarterback, and I feel he's going to make a real effort to get the ball out of Stafford's hands as frequently as possible, probably to Cooper Kupp about 20 or 30 times. I think that shifty, hardworking, white skill player will be able to triumph over the 49ers' newly acquired shifty, hardworking, 110% gritty skill player. On to another game in the NFC West, though, because really, neither of us are that invested in a meaningless game between the 49ers and the Rams. Now, I know you're invested in this game, though. The Seattle Seahawks are hosting the 6-1 New York Giants, who have no business being 6-1, but are still here. The Giants have been beating good teams. Their defense has looked solid. Their offense has been doing just enough to earn them victories on the mighty, mighty quads of Saquon Barkley. Now they go to the Seahawks, who is a team which has struggled defensively at points this year, but still has one of the higher flying offenses, led by Geno Smith, who has surprised many people. I think he's going to surprise some more people this week. The Seahawks are a great team at home. Paired with the fact the Giants are having to come all the way from the East Coast, and the fact the 12s will be out in force to support their once dead, now fully confident and fighting for a playoff spot team, and I just don't see them losing. I think it's going to be loud. I think Geno Smith is going to play very well. I think the Seahawks run game behind Kenneth Walker is going to be comparable to Saquon Barkley's performance for the Giants. I think he just edges out Daniel Jones in terms of effectiveness as a quarterback. Obviously, Geno can't run like Danny Boyd does, but he's certainly a better passer, and the Giants certainly have much worse receivers than the Seahawks. I predict Seattle to win at home in a surprise victory, an upset, if you will.
Well, who would have thought that the Giants-Seahawks would be one of the most exciting games in Week 8 heading into the season? Most people were probably looking past this game, and I think the Seahawks are going to win this game just because I think they're more dynamic than the Giants. Now, of course, it will be a close game given how good Brian Daboll is and how put together he has the Giants team. But I think the Seahawks will wind up winning because the Giants offense, third worst passing offense in the NFL as far as yards per game, do have the second rushing offense, but the Seahawks behind Kenneth Walker are going to be very good. Geno Smith through the air is going to be very good, even with the loss of DK Metcalf. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're only giving up 16.5 points over the last 2 weeks after being horrible the first few weeks of the season. So I think the Seahawks wind up winning this game. If the Giants wind up winning, good for me. And my favorite team's 7-1.
Yeah, but we all know that's not going to happen because you can't have nice things. It's just the way these things work, Tristan. You know it and I know it. On to Buffalo Bills for the Sunday night game. And I think the Bills will blow the Packers out. Their defense is better, their offense is better, their quarterback's better, their receivers are better, their coach is better, their fans are better, their stadium's better. Everything is better about Buffalo. It's a home game. Aaron Rodgers is going to get embarrassed as Josh Allen dominates the Green Bay defense and shows everyone why he should win MVP.
I mean, the Packers don't look good. They're poor in every aspect of the game. Defense, offense, running game, passing game. Randall Cobb's on the IR. Every receiver is dealing with injuries and is also bad. So the Packers are not capable of beating the best team in the NFL in the Buffalo Bills and the second best quarterback in the NFL in Josh Allen.
On to the final game, the Monday night game. The Cleveland Browns are the best 2-5 team in football history, if that's even a thing, are ready to tee off against Joe Burrow, his weak offensive line, and his feminine little receivers who can't run anything but go routes. The Browns defense will dominate the Bengals. The Bengals will fall to 4-4, and the Browns will earn a very unexpected victory and keep their head above water in anticipation for Deshaun Watson's return.
I don't really see that happening. I mean, Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense seem to have gotten back in a groove over the last 2 weeks. 65 points in total after the last 2 weeks. The Bengals offense is back, and it seems like they're finally finding a way to put up points again in spite of poor offensive line play. The Browns, on the other hand, have 4 losses in a row. They're spiraling downwards, and I think that is going to continue to happen. I see the Bengals winning this one. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, they're going to put up points this week. I see the Bengals walking away with the victory.
If you can say all those names you want, I'm only going to say one. Myles Garrett is going to rip old Joey B's head off and beat his own torso with it. Not even getting bothered taking the helmet off. The whole head's coming with it. That's my predictions. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, MySpace, Instagram, and all the other social media platforms we have. Thank you.